There's a hot topic in Canada right now, published just this of July 2024, the federal government's extension of its electric vehicle subsidy program. It's part of a broader effort to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, aiming for a goal of net zero by 2050. The subsidy goes up by $12,000 in combined federal and provincial subsidies for Canadian EV consumers. Environmentalists are ecstatic, but there are obviously others in doubt. Joining me today is Tara, an expert in government policy and economics.
This has been a talking point for a while, and it's true, there are certain benefits to the policy, but people need to see a bigger picture in all of this.
Right, let's talk about why the government believes these subsidies are necessary.
Well, our Canadian authorities aim to reduce transport emissions, which comprises 25% of Canada's total greenhouse gas output. Electric vehicles produce fewer emissions than gasoline-powered cars, so the idea is that more people driving EVs will lower the country's overall carbon footprint. These rebates are basically financial incentives that will make it more affordable for consumers and should encourage people to make the switch over to EVs. In Norway, for example, a similar program does exist, and these days the EVs take over the majority of new car sales, so there really is new potential here.
Critics argue that EV subsidies may not be the best use of funds, with concerns about opportunity cost. They suggest investing in things such as renewable energy might have an impact on emissions. Who is really benefiting from these?
Yes, the contention is that while subsidies are meant to make EVs more accessible, those of wealthier backgrounds gain a disproportionate advantage. This is because the rebates are going to people buying higher-end electric cars, such as Teslas. So, instead of helping low or middle-income families who might need financial support to afford an EV, the program is basically giving taxpayer money to people who already have lots of it. If the goal is to reduce emissions comprehensively, it makes more sense to focus subsidies on lower-cost electric vehicles or create means for lower-income households to access greener transportation options.
If that's the case, then shouldn't we just pursue more impactful actions for the good of the majority?
Well, the climate change drivers you mentioned are all equally important, but 30% of the carbon emissions come from the burning of fossil fuels, and a big chunk of that is PUVs. Here in Canada, 84% of adults have at least one car, and a mere 5.1% electric vehicles are registered in 2022. As such, it makes sense that a key strategy for decarbonizing our transportation is by enticing early adopters, though they're typically wealthier consumers, who can help drive down production costs over time. To end the reliance on fossil fuels, the electrification of these cars and subsidizing to increase its demand can lead to larger economies of scale, thus making EVs cheaper and more accessible.
Thus, it is crucial to invest in EV charging infrastructure. You're right, subsidies alone won't be enough to drive mass adoptions of EVs. Without a place to charge, many people will still hesitate to make the switch, no matter how affordable the vehicle is. We've seen this in other countries. The adoption of EVs can stall if there aren't enough charging stations to make them convenient for everyday use. It serves as a complementary investment, without which we may run the risk of creating an uneconomical environment where tax money keeps being pumped into the market as subsidies because the larger system is weak. It will lead to market distortions. I'm guessing these market distortions are really caused by failure to invest in the right infrastructure.
Exactly. If the government doesn't do its checks and balances and give app support on greener public transportation and other green technologies, the market can be distorted. We might see a situation where the government pumps billions of dollars to stabilize the EV industry and keep it competitive. That's unsustainable in the long term, and can you imagine the burden this places on taxpayers?
Finding a delicate balance between environmental goals and economic efficiency, is there a middle ground?
Yes, there's definitely a potential compromise. A nuanced approach would be to continue supporting EV adoption, but in a more targeted way. For example, focusing subsidies on lower-cost vehicles or lower-income households that could help them access them would be more significant. At the same time, the government could ramp up investments in renewable energy, public transit, and EV infrastructure. A comprehensive strategy like that would ensure that the benefits of cleaner technology are more evenly distributed across society.
A sensible approach. Now, my takeaway is that while the EV subsidy program has its potential, it does not become our standalone solution to get better, greener transportation. It needs to be part of a broader, more inclusive strategy to achieve long-term climate and economic goals.
Exactly. The subsidies are a step towards the right direction, but a more measurable, holistic approach is necessary to respond to the climate crisis we are facing today. Canadians are entrepreneurial and innovative people. In this free market, we can watch out for more social and economic outcomes that come from a cohesive interest in climate action. I believe the invisible hand is at work.
Invisible hand indeed. Thank you so much for your insights. It's clear that this policy, while well-intentioned, raises important questions about how we balance environmental progress with economic responsibility. Everyone, let's have a round of applause for Tara. Woo! Woo!
Thank you for having me.